Hey everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Movies for Life YouTube channel. And welcome to this Jaws Orca franchise review video. So in this video, we're going to take a look at another Jaws movie, of course, and that is Jaws 3, or Jaws 3D as it's also known, which is part of this DVD 3-pack that I have with the Jaws sequel. So yeah, let's talk about Jaws 3 from 1983 here. Um, so Jaws 3D is also known as Jaws 3 with the Roman numerals, or Jaws 3 with the number. It's a 1983 American horror film directed by Joe Alves and starring Dennis Quaid, Bess Armstrong, Simon McCorkindale, and Louis Gossett Jr. As the second sequel to Steven Spielberg's Jaws, it was the third installment in the Jaws franchise. The film follows the Brody children from the previous films to SeaWorld, a Florida marine park with underwater tunnels and lagoons. As the park prepares for the opening, a young great white shark infiltrates a park from the sea, seemingly attacking and killing the park's employees. Excuse me. Once the shark is captured, it becomes apparent that the second, much larger shark also entered the park and was the real culprit. Mike Brody, son of Police Chief Martin Brody of Amity Island, is working as chief engineer at SeaWorld Orlando alongside girlfriend Catherine or Kay Morgan, the park's senior biologist. Among the attractions are new underwater tunnels that allow for a view of the undersea life. While the park's lagoon gates are stuck open, a great white shark follows an unsuspecting team of water skiers into the park. Kay and her assistants notice that the resident dolphins, especially two individuals, Cody and Sandy, are afraid of leaving their pen and going into the lagoon. Later, Calvin Bouchard, the park manager, welcomes his friend, adventurer and hunter Philip Fitzroyce, and Mike's younger brother, Sean, arrives for a visit, having taken the summer off from college. That night, Shelby Overman, a mechanic, dives into the water to repair and secure the gates. He is attacked by the shark and killed, severing his right arm. Mike, Kay, and Sean go out for drinks, and Sean meets and begins dating Kelly Ann Bukowski, one of the park's water skiers. Meanwhile, two criminals sneak into the park and go underwater to steal coral they intend to sell, but both are killed by the shark in the process. So yeah, that's a long way of saying that's the process. That's the process. That's the synopsis for Jaws 3, the beginning. As far as the cast goes, we have Dennis Quaid as Michael Brody, Bess Armstrong as Catherine or Kay Morgan, Simon McCorkindale as Philip Fitzroyce, Louis Gossett Jr. as Calvin Bouchard, John Putch as Sean Brody, Leah Thompson as Kellyanne Bukowski, and P.H. Moriarty as Jack Tate. So yeah, that's the setup, the premise, and the cast for the 1983 Jaws sequel, Jaws 3, or Jaws 3D, whichever you'd like. I usually just call it Jaws 3 because I've never watched it in 3D because I've never had the glasses. I didn't see it in the theater because I would have only been 4 years old when it actually came out, and I don't have a 3D TV now. My understanding is that if you get the Blu-ray of Jaws 3, you can watch it in 3D, but I'm assuming you still need to have like a 3D TV. Somebody can comment down below and confirm that. But anyway, so for me, it's just Jaws 3. But my thoughts on this one is it's pretty ridiculous in a lot of ways. However, on my most recent watch, I was into it a little bit. I'm not going to say that I was like fully engaged, but I wasn't checking my phone as much as I have in other shark movies. And I think there's a couple big reasons for that we'll get into with my pros. So let's just start with that. And I think Dennis Quaid and Bess Armstrong's portrayal of the characters they play, these main characters of Mike and Kay, really had me really kind of had me invested and engaged in the movie. I think their chemistry together, their banter, just the likability of these two characters, I found myself caring and rooting for them. And that's something that I haven't watched Jaws 3 in probably 5-10 years. I'm not really sure. I've only seen it like 8 times my whole life, probably. But I guess I never really had that feeling before watching it. But this time I really felt engaged. Now, not as engaged as I was with the original Jaws with those characters. I'm not going to go that far. But for a second sequel and a third movie in this franchise, I think because of the two performers that they casted in these roles, they had good chemistry together. It didn't feel fake or forced. That was enough for me to be engaged in the story following these two, even though there's some other parts of the movie that are questionable at best. These two kind of kept it grounded for me and kept me interested. I also think the score in this movie, once again, is really solid. I think it's one of the stronger aspects of the movie. Having its own unique sound, while still, of course, having the John Williams Jaws theme that we come to know with the shark. But it's different. It varies from the other movies, but I think it's solid. I really do. I have to say that I found the third act in the movie to be pretty chaotic and fast paced with a few thrilling moments. I would argue even a little bit more so than the previous movie Jaws 2. I didn't find that to be quite as chaotic or fast paced as I did this one. So that's definitely a pro that I can give this movie. Once they recognize the fact that the younger shark, the smaller shark who died in captivity that they captured, wasn't the one causing most of the havoc, and that there was another bigger shark out there. That's when the you know what really hits the fan and things really take off. Where they're trying to, because they have a theme park going here. It isn't like just a beach like at Amity. They got water skiers in the water. They've got all kinds of people that they're trying to get out of the water and away from the water, and boats out of the water. And so, like, Mike is driving around on like a golf cart and tipping it over, trying to just rushing, trying to get everybody out of the water. So from that point forward, it's pretty fast paced, and I'm not going to say it's a great third act, but it's a third act that goes fast because of all the chaos going on. And then I have to say that I kind of like the whole idea of setting this in SeaWorld. I like the setting with these underwater lagoons. If this really existed, I'd be tempted to go and check it out. There's something about walking in those tunnels where you have, everything's around you and you can see sea life. Now, I prefer not to be down there when a great white shark of 30 feet, 35 feet is on the prowl. But just in general, it's pretty cool idea with SeaWorld. I know some people think it's kind of ridiculous, but I mean, they couldn't really do Amity Island again. I mean, that's kind of played itself out in two movies, and you didn't get most of the characters or the actors, actresses back from those first two movies. So I think this was an interesting, and I think it's something that they had to do, move the setting. And I like this setting, as I said. It's different. It separates itself from the other Jaws movies, and for that, I can appreciate it and kind of like it to a certain extent. So those are kind of my pros for Jaws 3 there. As I've tried to cover up the other sequels. As far as cons go, the biggest one is the whole 3D gimmick, which again, if you don't have the ability to watch the movie in 3D, because that's how it's set up, as far as the effects and the graphics and everything, then it really looks pretty cheesy and ridiculous and really doesn't hold up all that well. It just comes across in the movie that you aren't watching it in 3D with bad effects, bad graphics, and bad specific scenes that really stand out. I'm sure you could probably guess what scene I'm talking about at the very end of the movie. It's been well documented where the shark is basically sitting in place, but they make it look like it's coming towards this control room with the glass in front of it. And even once it breaks through the glass and it's just kind of sitting there with its tail wagging back and forth, it just doesn't hold up. And so I have heard from people that if you watch it in 3D, the movie's a bit better because a lot of the graphics and the effects obviously work. Even with the opening credits where they have like who's starring in the movie, sort of that 3D print. So it does work better from what I've been told, but like I said, I don't have the ability to watch it in 3D. So from that, I have to criticize it because when you watch it in 2D, it really doesn't hold up, and it really shows its age and lack of technology at that time, and it really just comes across as terrible. A lot of the graphics and specific scenes that kind of take you out of the movie. I think if Jaws 3 were made as just a regular 2D movie, I think it would work better. I really do. I'm still not saying it would be a great movie, but it would be better than what the 3D gimmick kind of takes you out of. It's a little bit like, well, Friday the 13th 3D is kind of the same, although I think that has a stronger story that I'm more engaged in than this one does. Um, but it was a time, late 70s, early 80s, where they were doing all this 3D gimmick. I've never been the biggest fan of 3D. I'll just be honest about it. It's just, to me, it's always kind of been a gimmick to get people into the theater, or to get people, it's a cash grab, basically, in my opinion. I much agree with John Carpenter on like that, because he once said in an interview that I never had any interest in 3D. It's a gimmick, and he's right. It is a gimmick. Now the studios don't care if you want to call it a gimmick, as long as they're making money off of it. But that's the biggest thing that's the problem with this movie: the fact that it's shot in 3D, and most people aren't going to watch it in 3D. The death scenes I didn't find as memorable or as well executed as the first couple Jaws movies. They're really just quick cuts and just kind of unremarkable overall. Now, part of that is because the people that are killed, you don't have the same sort of sympathy or knowledge, characterization of them, so you really don't care. Like these two criminals that go down under the water to try to steal coral, or even the guy that's trying to close the gate down under the water. I believe he's the first one that gets killed. Um, the only one that really has any sort of, and I don't even think this character is great, but Philip Fitzroy, played by Simon McCorkindale, actually gets swallowed by the shark, pulverized, if you will, as opposed to like chewed up. Which plays to the end of the movie and how they kill the shark, of course, if you haven't seen it. But he's holding a grenade, basically, that they just need to pull the pin on. But sorry if that's a spoiler for you, but the movie has been out for, what, 43 years now? So what have you been doing with your life? That's my question for you. But anyway, I just didn't find the death scenes with the shark to be all that effective compared to the first two movies. And really, the shark overall doesn't look nearly as effective on screen. Now, part of that is probably the 3D gimmick. And the graphics to go along with that. But it really does look more fake than the previous movies, even though all the sharks have been fake in the other movies, but they've done a better job of either hiding it or having better effects for it, or not having the 3D gimmick for it. And so this one I thought really stood out, not in a good way, as far as looking fake. Overall, I just don't think this movie has as effective writing, camera work, or overall directing as the first two movies does, and it really kind of lets the movie down overall. Again, I would say Jaws 3 is a watchable movie. Some people even say it's so bad it's good. The biggest thing for me that keeps it above water and watchable is Dennis Quaid and Bess Armstrong, who are really good actors. Also, I think Louis Gossett Jr. is a really good actor. Now, he doesn't have enough to do in this movie, in my opinion. I don't think, outside of the two main characters that I mentioned, Dennis Quaid and Bess Armstrong, nobody else really has anything to do here. So their characters aren't all that memorable, but Louis Gossett Jr. has always had a presence to him. I really liked him in a lot of movies, like Iron Eagle always comes to mind right away for me, from 1986, which is not a horror movie, but a very good movie that you should check out. But overall, yeah, the rest of the characters are pretty forgettable, not well written, and so I don't know, guys. Those are my feelings. I don't have a whole lot more to say about Jaws 3. I'm going to give this movie a 5.5 out of 10. I don't think it's the worst thing I've ever seen. It's certainly not the worst shark movie I've ever seen, but it is. The movies have strayed further and further down the ladder since that original Spielberg film from 1975, and that would continue, of course, as we'll get into in my next review. But I can't totally dog the movie either, because I did enjoy it a little bit more in this time with Dennis Quaid. I'm a big fan of Dennis Quaid. I think he's a great actor, and Bess Armstrong's really good in this movie, and I like their characters. So 5.5 out of 10 for Jaws 3, or Jaws 3D, if you will. If you're somebody that has seen it in 3D, go ahead and comment down below if it really makes a huge difference. If it's a lot better in 3D or a little bit better, comment down below. Please like this video, hit the little notification bell, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It would really help me out for the future content on my channel. But with all that being said, I hope you're enjoying this trip down Jaws Orca franchise review series that I'm doing here. We still got a few movies to review yet, so stay tuned for that. But as always, stay scared. Bye.